Hello, I am Berna ŞEKERCİOДLU.
I am Bahadır Zafer ERDÖNMEZ.
I am Dilruba CAN'a.
And today we will try to explain what is the United Nations and why it is not a worthwhile organization. On the webpage of the United Nations, they describe themselves as an international organization founded in 1945 after the Second World War by 51 countries committed to maintaining international peace and security, developing friendly relations among nations, and promoting social progress, better living standards, and human rights. According to our perspective, their claim and their actions are not fitting very well. If we want to improve the structure of the UN should welcome all, there should be no judgment, no Western hegemony. On the UKSA's website, there was an article about the United Nations called the United Nations Ineffective or Powerful. They express in this article one might describe UN democracy as one despot, one vote. The majority is not going to impose membership conditions that they themselves can't satisfy or fret about spending and accounting for other people's money or prevent the Jewish state from being the perennial whipping boy expanded diversionary tactic today's. UN is dominated by non-democracies for non-democracies. Of course, it is failing. The problem mainly arises with the 5 permanent members. The United Nations has been ineffective in recent years because of the structure of the Security Council, the lack of involvement in important global situations, and the difference in priorities between its actors. These actors include the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Russia, and China. These members have a veto power. These countries have dominant power over other member states, and this negatively affects the aim of the UN.
These members have a veto power in which they can veto any resolution within the Security Council. This presents a problem because when the Security Council comes to an agreement on how to approach a situation within the world, it can be vetoed by any of these 5 powers. They could veto for an ally or for themselves, and this can cause an uproar when done in very controversial situations. The Security Council could also add more seats to accommodate the large number of member states. The United Nations has been long criticized for its lack of involvement in major conflicts, and disputes is another reason why it's ineffective. One reason why the United Nations lacks involvement in because of the lack of involvement by its development members such as the United States, Russia, and China. These actors will usually stay out of conflicts that don't directly involve or benefit them. The United Nations lacks the involvement of multiple human crises, such as the Syrian civil war, has allowed these conflicts to further intensify. The UN sent 30 unarmed observers in April 2012, but this did very little to help the crisis. This doesn't mean the United Nations doesn't want to help, but because Russia, the United Nations isn't able to do very much in Syria. This causes a huge problem, because the organization that is meant to preserve place is not very effective in doing so because its actors have other goals. This could be changed if the United Nations were to put in recommended or goal for the contributes from its member states. This could possibly improve the contribution of its member states and therefore making it fair for all states within the United Nations. The United Nations plays a role in the world, but it plays that role very ineffectively. The Security Council has long been blamed for this ineffectiveness. Its 5 permanent members have a veto power which can block anything within it. This causes a lot of turmoil, especially when it's a controversial topic, like Russia vetoing any plan to help Syria come to peace.
The United Nations also struggles because it cannot get involved in conflicts throughout the world. This is because its Security Council blocks it from doing anything, and its members are very hesitant to get into action and help. It didn't help during the Rwandan genocide where almost 800,000 people were killed. This was because the Security Council refused to send in more peacekeepers, and the Security Council also didn't allow the troops that were already there to engage the killers unless it was for self-defense. This is a huge loss of life, considering the United Nations was created to stop genocide. Along with this inaction, it's developed and major powers are lacking when it comes to providing resources to help conflicts like these. A majority comes from the developing countries. Lastly, the United Nations suffer from the difference in priorities and interests of its members. Each and every member makes a decision based on how it will benefit from the outcome. The United Nations is held back from helping because its members control what it does, and the members only want to do what benefits them. Because of these specific problems, the United Nations suffers greatly. The United Nations can change and become better for the world, but it will require a global effort, and the major powers aren't ready for change.